In yet another blow to Fox News, the embattled network will now be contending with a new lawsuit, this time from a man named Ray Epps, who accused Fox News and its former host, Tucker Carlson, of defamation for suggesting on air that Epps was an undercover FBI agent who instigated the violence at the Capitol on January 6th as a way to take down Trump. According to the complaint, quote, just as Fox had focused on voting machines companies when falsely claiming a rigged election, Fox knew it needed a scapegoat for January 6th. It settled on Ray Epps and began promoting the lie that Epps was a federal agent who incited the attack on the Capitol. The complaint was filed in the same court system in Delaware, where Fox had only recently agreed to a $787 million settlement for yet another defamation case brought by Dominion Voting Systems. It's unclear yet how much Ray Epps is seeking in damages, but given Fox's track record in litigation this year, something tells me that number will be substantial. Now, I do want to expand on the conspiracy theory at the heart of this lawsuit, because I'm sure you've heard Ray Epps' name floating around the right-wing sphere in the same way that those people love to cling on to obscure figures and make them the root of all things evil. Ray Epps is a Republican. He is a two-time Trump voter. He attended the January 6th rally at the Ellipse. He even urged people to go into the Capitol. He was, for all intents and purposes, one of exactly the kinds of people who you would think Republicans would defend. After all, he bought into the bullshit that they were selling. According to the complaint, when Fox, through its on-air personalities and guests, told its audience that the 2020 election had been stolen, Epps was listening. He believed Fox. And when Epps kept hearing that Trump supporters should let their views be known on January 6th in Washington, D.C., Epps took that to heart. But the problem came when Republicans needed to explain away their involvement in the insurrection. And so first they tried to claim that it was Antifa that had breached the Capitol, which was a lie so ridiculous that even those purveyors of disinformation on the right had to abandon it. Then they decided to stick with the tried and true excuse that it was the old deep state. And so they blamed the FBI, but that was still just a bit too nebulous. They needed a person, someone who they could individually sacrifice to make their ill-defined conspiracy theory seem just a bit more realistic. And so they landed on this guy, Ray Epps, who, according to the New York Times, became the target of selectively edited videos painting him as a secret federal asset in charge of a breach team responsible for setting off the riot at the Capitol. And so, of course, because he, as a purported federal asset, was responsible for setting the spark that incited the insurrection, then he too was individually responsible for everything that followed. Tucker literally said on air that Epps was a, quote, central figure in the attack and that he had, quote, helped stage manage the insurrection. Yeah. All of those thousands of Trump supporters who stormed the seat of government clearly weren't acting on their own volition. They were merely the instruments of this one brilliant mastermind who caused them to act that way. And those stories went from obscure right-wing outlets right over to Fox News, because Fox treats its news with about as much scrutiny as Roy Moore scrutinizes his girlfriend's driver's licenses. And then those same conspiracy theories were amplified further by literal members of the Republican Party, like Ted Cruz and Thomas Massie, and of course, Donald Trump, which is to say, exactly the people you would think would amplify offensively false and blatant disinformation. For example, here's Ted Cruz himself during a public congressional hearing.
Ms. Sadburn, who is Ray Epps?
I'm aware of the individual, sir. I don't have the specific background to him.
Well, there are a lot of people who are understandably very concerned about Mr. Epps. On the night of January 5th, 2021, Epps wandered around the crowd that had gathered, and there's video out there of him chanting, "Tomorrow, we need to get into the Capitol, into the Capitol." This was strange behavior, so strange that the crowd began chanting, "Fed, Fed, 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 Fed." Ms. Sandburn, was Ray Epps a Fed?
Sir, I cannot answer that question.
The next day, on January 6th, Mr. Epps is seen whispering to a person, and 5 seconds later, 5 seconds after he's whispering to a person, that same person begins to forcibly tear down the barricades. Did Mr. Epps urge them to tear down the barricades?
Sir, similar to the other answers, I cannot answer that.
Shortly thereafter, the FBI put out a public post seeking information on individuals connected with violent crimes on January 6th. Among those individuals, in the bottom there, is Mr. Epps. The FBI publicly asked for information, offering cash rewards leading to information leading to the arrest. This was posted, and then, sometime later, magically, Mr. Epps disappeared from the public posting. According to public records, Mr. Epps has not been charged with anything. No one's explained why a person videoed urging people to go to the Capitol, a person whose conduct was so suspect the crowd believed he was a Fed, would magically disappear from the list of people the FBI was looking at. Ms. Sandburn, a lot of Americans are concerned that the federal government deliberately encouraged illegal and violent conduct on January 6th. My question to you, and this is not an ordinary law enforcement question, this is a question of public accountability. Did federal agents or those in service of federal agent actively encourage violent and criminal conduct on January 6th?
Not to my knowledge, sir.
And as a result of this, Epps and his wife had to contend with an avalanche of death threats. They were forced to sell their home and their wedding business in Arizona and move to a 350-square-foot mobile home located in a trailer park in the mountains of Utah. He became the subject of derisive merchandise and songs, all of which is to say his life was effectively ruined because of these baseless accusations. All the while, he swore under oath during a deposition that he wasn't some mole for the FBI, that he'd never worked for law enforcement or spoke with anyone at any government agency, including the FBI or the CIA, which is why his lawyer then sent a letter to Fox and Tucker Carlson demanding a retraction and an on-air apology, which, of course, Epps never got. In fact, Epps was literally alerted in May that he was being charged by the DOJ for participating in the insurrection. So I'm not sure how he could be both a federal asset and a target of the government for the same campaign that they purportedly had him mastermind. But here's what's so insidious and pathetic at the same time. The movement that Republicans have built not only doesn't help any of these people, but it actually devours them. And it's not just the suckers sitting in their living rooms mainlining Fox. Even at the highest ranks of the Republican Party, consider how many of Trump's own lawyers have either gone to prison, been disbarred, been sanctioned, or are being investigated right now. Think about the 34 indictments handed down as part of Robert Mueller's investigation. Think about the leaders of these far-right militias now being imprisoned on seditious conspiracy charges. Everything that Donald Trump touches and his movement touches dies. And the only thing more pathetic than these people having their lives turned upside down on his behalf are the people who see that and yet still continue to coddle him, somehow thinking that they'll be different, that he truly cares about them. Here's a hint. Unless your name is Donald Trump, he does not give one single solitary shit what happens to you. So look, these people will continue to flock to his aid because that's what a cult of personality is. These are people who give unlimited fealty to someone who they perceive as their deity, even if they get nothing in return. Less than nothing. In fact, given that they're actually continuously subjected to legal jeopardy as the result of their allegiance to this stalwart of corruption and criminality. If someone like Ray Epps, some random dude who got suckered into believing the bullshit that he was supposed to believe from his own team, if he could become the boogeyman for the same people who manipulated him, then it can happen to anyone. There is no loyalty except to one person, and even then, it only goes one way. And if it wasn't such a cult, these people would have a lot easier time recognizing that. As for Fox, they're learning the hard way that if they want to parade themselves around as a news outlet, then they're going to be held accountable when they abuse their role by spreading lies and disinformation. It cost them $787 million at the hands of Dominion. It'll likely cost them far more for the Smartmatic lawsuit. It cost them millions more at the hands of Abby Grossberg. And now they'll almost certainly have to settle with Ray Epps, and apparently learn the hard way that the flip side of fucking around is finding out. Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to the channel and do your part to help grow the progressive media ecosystem. I don't do sponsorships or paid ads, I won't ask for money, but just subscribing to this channel goes a really long way, and it helps get the message out to more people. The subscribe button is right here on this screen. You can also subscribe to my Spanish language channel, which I made to reach those crucial Spanish-speaking voters. That link is on the screen too. And finally, if you want to listen to my audio podcast, you can follow that link as well. Thanks so much for watching.